Pretoria studio is the Secretary for Defence and Military Veterans, Dr. Sam Gulube. Dr. Sam, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Let's just first start with what the President, of course, had to say, that the Army came to the party and ensured that they do not get involved in politics.
That is very true, Aldrin. That is to say that when the members of the Defence Force join the Defence Force, they pledge allegiance to the Constitution, and they state clearly that they will never be involved in activities that will either harm or advance the interest of any political party. So they are above party politics.
How intrinsic is it? Because taking into consideration that at some point we had President Jacob Zuma, who was still the president of the country and still the commander-in-chief of the country, and on the other hand there was, of course, these political talks that were taking place on the other hand, and of course bringing in Cyril Ramaphosa as the new commander-in-chief. How do you guys then work around that balancing act?
The balancing act is governed by our Constitution. Our constitutional democracy states very clearly that the president of the country is the commander-in-chief of the South African National Defence Force, and that the South African National Defence Force is governed by the Constitution and the Parliament of the country. The president is the only person in the country who has the authority to deploy the South African National Defence Force, and the member of cabinet, according to the Constitution, is the one who is responsible for the Defence Force. And the Defence Secretariat, according to Constitution, that is Section 2204, is established to enhance civil control of the Parliament and of the member of cabinet of the Defence Force.
Dr. Sam, was there ever a point, just before we move on to speaking about the National Defence Force Day, which is coming up, was there ever a point where the SANDF and its officials, its high-ranking officials, were panicking that there could be violence that breaks out as the country goes through this transition of introducing a new president?
Well, that concern would have been the concern not just of the South African National Defence Force, but mostly of the security services of the country, which, as you know, according to Section 198 of the Constitution of South Africa, the security services are established for ensuring that there is law, there is order, and that there is the key aspect of the national security is that our people should live without any fear of any violence, and that they should be able to advance their interest towards a better life. In other words, the protection and the defense of our people is the responsibility of the security services as a whole. But it is true that like any other human being who are involved in this kind of functions responsible for the security of the country, from time to time you might be concerned. But I think what was really assuring to all of us was the maturity of our democracy, the maturity of our commitment by the country as a whole towards the Constitution, that is the rule of law of the country.
And I have to say that a lot of people have been applauding South Africans for staying calm during this period of the transition. But let's speak quickly about the National Defence Force Day coming up on Wednesday. Why is it so important for us to celebrate this day every year?
This is very important because as we celebrate the Armed Forces Day on Wednesday, the 21st of February, we are really, as South Africans, celebrating our democracy. We are celebrating our freedom, to remind ourselves that this freedom that we enjoy today was actually never free, because we have had a number of people throughout our history, the history of our country, who laid down their lives to ensure that we enjoy these freedoms. And about in 1917, we had the ship Mandy, which sank on the British Channel, and where a number of lives, more than 800 lives were lost of South African citizens who were at that time serving to fight on that First World War in Europe. And when we mark this Armed Forces Day, we are saying to the South Africans, let's honor all the men and women in uniform who laid down their lives to ensure that we are all able to enjoy our freedom.
Dr. Sam Gulube, thank you so much for your time this evening. Of course, we as South Africans as well celebrate our defense force who have ensured that our borders are not hindered and our borders remain non-porous, as though there are some of those concerns around the porous nature of our borders. But of course, on Wednesday, the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, the commander-in-chief, will be addressing, delivering the keynote address on Wednesday at the Armed Force Day celebrations in Kimberley. For now, let's take a quick ad break, and after that, we continue with our news bulletin.